Hey guys, what's going on? It's me, Jay. Just got the news this morning that from Lisa, as a matter of fact, that Charlie Kirk has passed away at the age of 31 years old as a result of an assassin's bullet in Utah. Um, he was doing his usual shtick of going around to college campuses and provoking political debates, political dialogue with college students, and he was shot dead. Now, the internet is ablaze about opinions on him because he had several controversial opinions about a lot of issues: immigration, the war in Palestine and Israel, gun control, Black Lives Matter, and other things. And but all of those things, despite what you may believe about them, despite your opinions or where you may fall on them, none of those things deserve for your life to be taken. Now, here's a question: has political commentary of the sort that Charlie Kirk does, or did, has it gone too far? Has it uh, has it if it's going to start to result in the deaths of people and people dying, maybe it's time to give this up, especially in the form that he does it. That he did it, going to college campuses, sitting in front of these students and debating out in open forums with no security guards, with no protection whatsoever. You know what I mean? Like, people will say that he's brave for doing this because he's going into what they consider as conservatives the belly of the beast and debating these hot button issues with many people who are leftist, many people who will disagree with him. When I'm taken to a video in which Charlie Kirk, I forget which campus he was at, but Charlie Kirk was approached by a father and a son, and the son was a conservative and the father was a liberal. And he said, you know, and the son was basically berating the father, agreeing with many of Charlie Kirk's positions on Donald Trump, on gun control, on Palestine, on Ukraine, on feminism, on BLM, all these issues. The son was agreeing with Charlie Kirk and disagreeing with the father. And one thing that Charlie Kirk said in that interview, paraphrasing, he said, during that confrontation, he said, "Let not politics be something that that causes us to hate one another. In the end of the day, he's still your father and you're still his son. And instead of berating your father and instead of treating your father with disrespect, show empathy and show understanding." Now, whether or not Charlie Kirk ever showed understanding or empathy towards the positions that you hold or that I hold is beside the point. But the point is, we shouldn't allow politics to divide us to such a degree that we want to take each other's lives, because that's not what America's about. America is not about killing each other because we have different opinions or hating each other because we have different opinions. As the late President Abraham Lincoln said, uh, even though we disagree, we are one nation. And we come together not as adversaries, but as friends. But oftentimes these things can get heated. These things can get, uh, reach a fever pitch. And, you know, people don't know how to react. when it comes to things like this. But I feel like the form that Charlie Kirk used, and you see a lot of other people use it. I believe Steven Crowder was the first one. It's ill-advised. I don't think people should do this kind of thing, you know, because there was no protection. You're out in open forum. You're intentionally provoking people. He didn't deserve to get shot, but intentionally provoking individuals to, using provocative language in the way that he did. He's not as bad as Myron Gaines. Myron Gaines, a fresh and fit, was even his thing was even worse when he did it in college campuses. Calling people out of their names and stuff, but just berating them and just egging them on. You got to understand that when you're dealing with certain people, they don't just take it as just politics. They don't just take it as a political disagreement. They take it, personal, especially when you're talking about issues that they hold dear, whether it be gun control, whether it be BLM, whether it be Palestine, Israel. My understanding, this individual or the individual, they don't have an individual in custody yet, but the individual that they thought they did have in custody was someone who was a passionate pro-Palestinian advocate. And as we know, Charlie Kirk is very very pro-Israel. He takes very pro-Israel stances. He even had the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, tweet that he was praying for him when he got shot yesterday. So, and it could be a leftist or it could be a right winger. There are right wingers, conservatives, people to the right of Charlie Kirk who disagree with Charlie Kirk's stance with regards to Israel. Many on the right, particularly of the Groyper variety, the Candace Owenses, who used to work for Charlie Kirk. She started off as part of the Turning Point USA organization that Charlie think tank that Charlie was a part of. Um, uh, but she has since shifted away from the mainstream conservative view on this issue to a more radical, straight up, the Groypers, the Nick Fuenteses of the world and the Candace Owenses of the world are, I would say, they're completely anti-Semitic. So it could have been somebody on the right, who disagreed with Charlie on this issue that had him assassinated. But either way, if this was the issue, he still didn't deserve to die for it. He's a father, he's a husband, and who are we to judge? Some of the stuff he said, particularly racial stuff, was reprehensible. There's no doubt about that. You know what I mean? A lot of his comments were reprehensible. He basically indicated that, through many of his comments, that black people were responsible for a lot of the crimes. But as we have a video on this channel about Rush Limbaugh, we have videos on this channel about a lot of conservative commentators. You gotta understand, a lot of this is performative. I mean, I'm not saying they don't agree with it, and that's not actually what they believe, but a lot of it is performative. They're appealing to a base, and their base is racist. So if someone doesn't feel sympathy for Charlie Kirk's passing or whatever because of some of the stuff he said, particularly some of the racist stuff, you can't really fault them or blame them because he didn't consider their life worthy of recognition. So why should they consider his life worthy of recognition? But the point is, don't let politics turn you into a miserable human being. Don't let that cause you to go out and kill somebody because it's not worth it. You know what I'm saying? That person is losing their life and you're losing your freedom. You know what I mean? You can disagree with them vehemently, and you don't have to mourn Charlie Kirk's death. You know what I mean? You have the right not to mourn his death. You even have the right to gloat about him, dying if that's what you wish. If you're Palestinian, or if you're black, or if you're a gay person, or if you're a trans person, right? You have that right. I'm not sitting here in judgment or in condemnation of you, because I mean, there's a lot of the stuff he said was reprehensible. But at the end of the day, besides being a political commentator, he was a human being. He did have a family, you know. And I've always been against this kind of provocative political commentary, this kind of demonization of the other side. Years ago, when Rush Limbaugh passed away, we did a video on him. You know, initially I didn't want to do a video on him, but Lisa kind of, was like, convinced me to do it for the same reason, basically, because I believe that Rush Limbaugh was the start of this kind of stuff. Rush Limbaugh was the beginning of this kind of, um, of not just disagreeing with the other side, but demonizing the other side, making the other side seem not just wrong, but evil. And Charlie Kirk did a lot of that. I mean, he he berated liberals. He berated people on the left. He demonized black people. He demonized Palestinians. He demonized trans people, through his rhetoric. And at the end of the day, his rhetoric came back to bite him in the ass. You know what I mean? You can't go around being a hate preacher and preaching hate and then expect that hate is not going to come back to you. Now, did he deserve to die? No, of course he didn't. But at the end of the day, you get what you put into the world. You know what I'm saying? I think you can be a conservative and you can have conservative viewpoints without making the other side seem like complete scumbags. But unfortunately, this type of political commentary that he engages in is fiery and is passionate, but at the same time can lead to violence. You know, that's what I think happened here. He preached and he said reprehensible things, totally reprehensible things, praising, uh, and getting people riled up. And that's what he did. He did it for show. We talked about in the South Park, when we did the South Park episode, how they lampooned him. The kind of things that Cartman was saying, Cartman playing him, that are provocative comments. And I see this a lot on the left. I mean, on the right, more so than the left, but I see it on the left too. People like Cenk Uygur does it on the left. It's not that Republicans are just wrong in their positions, but that they're evil people, demonizing Republicans and stuff. The same way that Charlie Kirk or Ben Shapiro, Stephen Carter demonized the left. I think that kind of discourse needs to end in politics. We can disagree with each other without being violently disagreeable. We don't have to make the other side seem like complete monsters that are worthy of death, because things like this come back to bite us in the ass and could cause harm to us and our families, like it was with Charlie Kirk. You know what I mean? And this sort of open air, get at me, bro, or prove me wrong type shit that Stephen Carter started. This is even worse than before. Because before, when you had the ditto heads like the Rush Limbaughs, the Mark Levins, right, the Michael Savages, they would say things provocative, but they did it on the radio. You know what I'm saying? The Michael Reagans, they did it on the radio. You know what I'm saying? Behind the comfort of their booth and whatever. These individuals that are going to these college campuses intentionally provoking people, this is dangerous. This is very dangerous doing this. And I think a lot of times they don't believe a lot of stuff they say. They just say it to be intentionally provocative. You see this with Candace Owens. You see this with Myron Gaines, Andrew Tate, all these political commentators that are not really necessarily professional politicians, just commentators and looking to gain a rise out of people for content. You know, it can be dangerous, and it wasn't his case. So anyway, rest in peace to Charlie Kirk. Condolences to his family, but I think it's a warning. It's a warning against, um, using provocative language, you know, like this. Guys, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to see when my next video is coming out. Love you guys.